Nickelodeon, the cornerstone of every kid from the early 2000s. From SpongeBob Me Bob to Danny Phantom, Jimmy Neutron to whatever the heck is going on here. Nickelodeon, on the surface at least, was a channel made and designed for kids in mind, having the perfect blend of wacky cartoons and sitcoms that, for the time, were pretty damn good. Except for these. These suck.
Thought you might like a slice of my face plant pizza!
If you've subscribed to this channel early on, then the first video you've probably seen of mine was the Cartoon Network on the PS2 video. Once again, I'm surprised and extremely grateful for how well that video's done, and I've had a lot of people ask me whether or not I'm going to be doing a Nicktoons video as well. Well, the answer is pretty simple.
I plan these videos in advance. Of course I'm going to do this.
But this time, I'm doing something a little different. Instead of doing one big video covering a variety of shows, we're going to be doing one show per video, just to cover all my bases. And today we're starting off with a show that I'm pretty nostalgic for. Something very magical, whimsical, and just very odd, you might say. I'm talking, of course, about Planet Sheen.
No, I was making a point!
I mean, the Fairly Oddparents. This was, at one point, one of Nickelodeon's most popular shows, outside of the little square dude, of course. Following the boy who no one understands, Timmy Turner, as his miserable life is turned upside down when he gets his fairy godparents, Cosmo and Wanda, going through wacky adventures with wishes that mostly backfire, meeting hilarious villains like Crocker and Vicky, and of course, having some of the greatest characters ever written, like Sparky.
What do you want me to say? I know a lot of words, because I just ate a dictionary.
Fuck me, who thought this was a good idea? I remember back when I was like in the first grade, right after I got home from school, I would either watch Power Rangers or the Fairly Oddparents while doing my homework, going back and forth from procrastinating to doing my math homework. Of course, I grew out of the show's demographic and other shows got my attention by that point, but growing up, it was kinda weird to see that the show was still going. I do remember watching Poof's first episode, but that was the last time I went out of my way to watch this show. I would see glimpses of it while watching my younger siblings, and it was just weird, seeing how later down the line one of the main antagonists of the show would be Anti-Poof, or Foop. That's a creative name here, guys. The writing and overall jokes were just not as funny as the older episodes, all culminating into the final season of the show. Season 10 in 2017. Jesus, this show went on a lot longer than I thought. By that time, I was like starting my second year of college. And looking how the show ended up in its final episodes, having a character that's literally a Mary Sue, and it being animated on Flash instead of its usual style is jarring. No offense to Flash animated cartoons out there can be some amazing things made by it. But when you're using a certain animation style throughout your entire run and then you switch to Flash, everything just looks really weird. But let's circle back into the glory years of the show, where they could pretty much do no wrong. And me being a fan of the show, you know I wanted some of that good merch. Which leads into our topic for today.
Okay, so the Fairly Oddparents had 2 games released in the 5th generation of consoles, not counting crossover games like the Nicktoons Unite games, or God forbid the iToy games. So one of these games I did play as a kid, so it's gonna be kind of weird for me to review something that I haven't played in like, I don't know, 15 years. But let's start off with the game that I didn't play as a kid, and the one that came out first, and that is the Fairly Oddparents Breaking the Rules.
The Fairly Oddparents Breaking the Rules was developed by Blitz Games, a studio from Leamington Spa? Yeah, that. God, I know almost 10% of my viewers are English and they're probably pissed right now.
Awesome! We're not British!
This studio was founded by the Oliver twins, Andrew and Philip Oliver, who are most known for producing a lot of games for 8-bit computers in the 1980s and 90s, mainly developing for the Amstrad, the BBC Micro, and of course, the ZX Spectrum. Yes, I know you pronounce it Zed, but I'm not English. The most popular games they made around this time was the Dizzy series, following this little dude who looks like an egg going through a variety of adventures, sometimes changing genres in between games. These games were popular enough for the Oliver twins to have their own game studio instead of making these games themselves, and Dizzy Enterprise Limited was born in 1990. But in 1994, they did a bit of a rebranding, becoming Interactive Studios Limited. Around this time, they're most known for developing Glover, a game that I've heard nothing but good things about, well, at least the N64 version of it. In 1999, they rebranded once again to Blitz Games, and until 2013, they were mostly known for making licensed games, with their main publisher they worked with being THQ, which... Wow, THQ's Rise and Fall is a giant story for another day. But to quickly summarize, after a combination of bad investments on THQ's part, and licensed games just not selling as well as they once were, thanks to the rise of mobile gaming in the early 2010s. So with the perfect storm of a bankruptcy ahead, THQ shut down and there went Blitz Games as well. Don't get me wrong, this studio did make other games. They had a good relationship with Bandai Namco, helping them make games like Pac-Man World 3 and Dead to Rights Retribution. I'm not kidding, look it up. But yeah, their last game was technically Shrek Alarm, an alarm clock app on your iPhone. But their last real game they worked on was working on ports for Epic Mickey 2. Blitz went out of business after that, and the Oliver twins have been in and out of the game industry, with another studio that didn't produce any games, and they also made a few Dizzy games, thanks to them getting funded on Kickstarter. But let's get back into Blitz Games' heyday, with the Fairly Oddparents breaking the rules. This game was released in November 2003, around the same time as the show was beginning its 4th season. It was released on all the major home consoles at the time, it had a handheld port that looks more like a 2D platformer and shooter, and it also had a PC port that kind of does its own thing, looking more like a downgraded version of the show with everything being less animated. Okay, back to this game. Starting it up, we get a cutscene showing Timmy waking up with...
Oh no! Vicky! She's here! My brain is numb with horror!
For some reason, all the voice acting in the game is extremely compressed, making it sound like something out of a Game Boy video cartridge. Anyone remember those? It's not horrible, it's just noticeable. Timmy's parents come into his room, telling him that they're going on a seminar over the weekend and will definitely not be having fun, and that means that Vicky will be hanging out at the house all weekend, making Timmy's life miserable. Timmy asks Cosmo and Wanda if they could stall Vicky while he thinks of something to do in the meantime, and they remind him that fairies can't be seen by anyone else or Timmy loses his godparents. And then Timmy wishes for them not to follow the rules, which leads into total chaos. I like how the wish bubble that pops up while this happens says plot device. It's like they know what they're doing here. So Timmy broke the rules so badly that if anyone who touches the rulebook next will be granted fairy wishing powers. And look who's conveniently right next to the rulebook. Yep, Vicky can now wish for anything, well, without her really knowing it of course, but this isn't good at all. Timmy, Cosmo, and Wanda get poofed up to Fairy World in a court case? Wasn't expecting this, hopefully they're defended by Phoenix Wright.
Objection!
So to summarize, after Timmy did his really stupid wish, the pages of the rules were scattered all across the world, and he has to get them back or else he loses Cosmo and Wanda. His fairies also lose most of their wish-granting abilities as well, meaning that they have to find wish stars to grant wishes for Timmy. More on that later. He has 49.5 hours to do this, so he's off to find the pages of the rules. And that's pretty much it for the plot. After that, each level kind of has its own self-contained plot that bridges with the overall game, where they conveniently find pages of the rules along the way. I think the best thing to do is to break down each level because there's not that many here and they all have their own unique quirks about them. The first level you play is the tutorial, where Vicky wishes that Timmy can sleep forever. So, at the beginning of each level, Vicky says something in the line of, "I wish," then Timmy has to go through whatever the hell she says. That seems kind of contrived, but it makes sense for the context of the game. This level is here to show off the basic controls of the game, where it's unsurprisingly a 3D platformer. This was pretty much the norm for a lot of licensed kids games at the time, What Breaking the Rules does differently is that most of these levels have gimmicks that make them stand out from one another. Now, some of these aren't exactly great, but we'll get to those later. But the main thing that you need to do in each level is to find the wish stars. Find 5 of them and then go to a particular platform, and Timmy can grant a wish, and he's also given a page of the rules. Oddly enough, this kind of reminds me of Ape Escape out of all things, but this is way easier than that game since all the stars do is run away, they don't attack you or anything. There are 3 wishes in each level, so you'll be collecting 15 stars no matter what. You also have these crowns, and if you collect 100 of them, you get an extra life, which doesn't really amount to much since I never got a game over here since it's very easy. The only other thing to collect here is these Crimson Chin cards. If you find all of them in each level, you get a compressed clip of the show. That's nothing amazing here, but I guess for the time that's a nice little bonus. Also, Cosmo and Wanda have their own dedicated button for them to come out and say a few lines. Really though, it's them saying the same 5 lines over and over again, but to be honest, they are pretty funny.
Wanda! Are you ready to apologize?
If I do, can I keep my dignity?
No deal, honey.
So yeah, that's pretty much the core gameplay here. Once we get out of Timmy's dream, we're put into a hub world, which is just Timmy's room for now, but after completing a couple of levels, we'll unlock the rest of Timmy's house. This is where you can select the game's levels, and the first one I did was the video game level. All of these levels are obviously based off the show, but some of these levels are based off of a specific episode. In this case, this level is based off the episode Power Mad, where Timmy, Chester, and AJ are put into a video game, and they have to complete it to escape it. The same thing happens here in this game, and, well, this level is pretty basic. All you need to do is run around, jump, and collect stars. You do have a gun that's similar to Mega Man's Mega Buster, but the game doesn't tell you that you have this until you try and attack some enemies. And this was something that caught me off guard here. This game doesn't have a general attack in a sense. Some of the levels have their own unique attacks, and other levels you can't attack at all. So you have to rely on this gun, which isn't horrible, but I wish it had a larger blast radius. Outside of that, this level falls in line with every 3D platformer that was made around the time. The only other thing to note here is this part where you have to move ice blocks with this bulldozer, and it controls like ass. The part where you play as AJ for a second, and he basically has the same controls, but there's no attack. And there's also this part where you play as Chester, shooting stuff down, which kinda reminds me of a watered down version of Centipede, I guess. It all culminates into a boss battle that makes me think the developers were playing Metroid at the time, with shooting a giant brain in a jar. The next level I did was the camping level, based off of one of the Squirrely Scouts episodes, and this level shows off a light amount of sexism. Yay! With Cosmo and Timmy not telling Wanda that they were planning on going on a camping trip because the Squirrely Scouts are a manly thing and Wanda wasn't invited. As Timmy is about to leave for the camp, Vicky wishes that the Cream Puffs, an all-girls, Girl Scouts, God that was a mouthful, were better than the Squirrely Scouts when she's in control of them while Timmy is out camping. That turns into the Cream Puffs kidnapping all the Squirrely Scout kids and Timmy has to go and save them. I know the Fairly Oddparents wasn't the first show that did the whole contrived boy versus girl plots, but this still doesn't make it feel less cringy.
Wanda, what are you doing here? This is a boys' camp.
This level emphasizes stealth over action, but it's extremely easy to run around these girls with their very bad AI. I like how all the Squirrely Scout kids look the same. They really did not give a shit here. The only part that really stood out to me here was when Timmy has to sneak into the Cream Puff space, and he wishes that he looks like a girl with Cosmo laughing at him. Wow, that's not dated or insensitive at all. After performing a special dance to get into the Cream Puff space, yes, this comes out of nowhere and it doesn't fit with the game at all, why did all of these licensed kids games have a force rhythm section that's just shoehorned into them? We go into their base, and the camera switches to an overhead view, where you need to find all of the scouts spread across multiple tents. Once you find all of them, then it moves to the ending of the level, which is just a Vicky chase sequence that's very easy. The next level I played was the Crimson Chin level, and Vicky wishes that the Crimson Chin was completely useless, and that Timmy was trapped in his comics. This leads to Timmy taking the mantle of Clef, the Crimson Chin's sidekick, and he goes around stopping evildoers while giving the Crimson Chin his abilities back. The main way of attacking in this level is a boomerang that's a little better than the pea shooter in the video game level. The difference between this level and other levels so far is that this place has more of a central hub instead of the level being linear. It still doesn't change much though, but it's interesting I guess. You go against 3 of the Crimson Chin's villains as he slowly gets his power back. I like how he turns into this lame dude with a mask that barely fits him. The villains are nothing special. You have this farmer dude who drives around in a giant pig-shaped car? All you need to do is move around from side to side to catch up to him. You have Spatula Lady, and her boss battle is extremely easy. All you need to do is just wait for her to stop attacking and then shoot her. And then you have this disco guy, who I don't remember from the show, but all you need to do is jump around these rooftops to catch up to him, using this grapple hook that you have that's a little janky to use, but it gets the job done. After that, the Chin gets his powers back and the level is complete. We're back in Timmy's room and his bathroom door opens up. Here we can move on to the next level, where, well, the rest of the levels are pretty much the same in terms of gameplay, with some light variation, of course. The bathroom level is based off the episode Tiny Timmy, when Timmy shrinks down to learn more about cells for his science class, and then gets eaten by Vicky. I'm not even gonna go there, so let's move on. In this level, you play in the Shrinky suit, shrinking down into the bathtub in Timmy's room. While in the suit, the controls are a little more slower in comparison to how Timmy usually controls, so jumping is a little more difficult. You also have these tightrope sequences where you automatically move forward, but that doesn't stop me from falling down a lot. After that level, the downstairs area of Timmy's house is unlocked and you have access to the rest of the game's levels. You have Timmy going to school with the anti-fairies coming in to try and ruin his day. Weirdly enough, Anti-Cosmo and Wanda don't show up. Instead, it's these 3 random anti-fairies with these funny voices.
We've always wanted to play with you.
Turns out these guys are all voiced by Rob Paulson, who has voiced hundreds of characters, but of course is most famous for...
Yes, are you going to finish that croissant?
Knock yourself out.
Soon, Jimmy Neutron. Soon. Aside from fucking wrecking balls breaking down the school, and having this library that's just giant, even for adults in this universe, once again, this level is pretty similar to the previous level shown. Well, except when you run into Crocker, and Jesus Christ. Most of the characters from the show had a somewhat decent transition into 3D, but Crocker... he looks fucking terrifying! His parts in this level are very easy stealth sections, with his AI being pretty stupid. Oh yeah, and the anti-fairies get their own boss battle here as well. And it kinda reminds me of a more broken version of sucking up ghosts from Luigi's Mansion, where you have to move the analog stick back and forth to keep into this green area, chipping away its health. This is the most difficult part of the game here, which isn't saying much, but hear me out. Since moving this bar right here is super sensitive, and no matter how well I do, the game arbitrarily kicks you off of here, since it doesn't want you to kill the anti-fairy on your first try. The level ends with Timmy breaking Crocker's fairy-catching van in the basement of the school.
Boy, is he in for a surprise!
What the fuck?
The alien abduction level is next, and it starts out with this tiny area of Dimsdale getting attacked. I don't know how Timmy is going to cover up whatever the heck is going on here. Aside from the random aliens attacking, Timmy wishes for these boxing gloves that break down certain walls and are only really used once here. Then you make it onto the alien ship in a Crash Nebula costume, using this giant gun as your main attack. After that, you have the level where Timmy turns into a dog. Once again, this is based off of a specific episode, in this case, Dog's Day Afternoon. What kid is going to get that reference? Great movie though, please watch Dog Day Afternoon. Anyways, this is one of the most basic levels in the game, and that's really saying something. You don't have any attack whatsoever, the people inside the mall can't hurt you, all you're doing is running from point A to point B with occasionally digging holes in these potted plants to go from one room to another. How does that work? The final level is Timmy making fun of Vicky for not knowing her world history while criticizing her homework. So then she wishes for her version of history to be correct, and Timmy has to go back in time as well. How nice of her. Anyways, instead of one level where you have to do 3 wishes, this level has 3 different time periods where Timmy has to wish for things to go back to normal. I really like the concept of this level. This is probably the most original material from this game. Aside from the level opening in medieval times, running into King Arthur.
I can see!
I can fight!
But yeah, this is kinda cool. You go through his castle, making sure that he gets the Sword of Excalibur, and then you go to ancient Egypt, making sure the pyramids are pyramids and not cubes. How does Vicky fuck that up? And then you move on to ancient Greece, fixing a bunch of statues. This level is simple, but I like the variety here. This is probably my favorite level in the entire game. Alright, boss battle time. You have collected almost every single page of the rules except for one, and you have to go back into Fairy World to do the ultimate challenge, where Vicky turns into a fire-breathing dragon, and you have to make her say, "I wish I never took the book from Timmy." And you make Vicky say this by having her attack these tiles on the floor in the right order. God, this went from turning Vicky into a dragon to hitting tiles on the floor. What the fuck happened here, guys? This boss battle is extremely easy. Even if some of the buttons on the floor don't do anything to help you, once you figure out the right order, you should be done here. After that, the rules are restored, Cosmo and Wanda get their powers back, and Timmy first wishes for cake because why not? They had a long day. And that's about it.
This game didn't really impress me all that much, which is kind of a shame. There is a decent amount of variety in its levels, but the core gameplay is so simple that, unfortunately, it just comes off as bland.
Don't get me wrong, there was a good reason why so many licensed kids games at the time were platformers, but with breaking the rules here, it has a very basic and bare-bone template of what a 3D platformer is, with some variety in its levels. But it never really focuses on what you're going to be doing for the entire game, running and jumping. If you don't have anything else to make it special, then you're gonna have a dull time. All of these levels go on for a good chunk of time, and yes, the platforming is broken up by the wishes you do, and they do add something else to the gameplay, but the wishes are very situational and can only be used in one section of each level. I wish these, wishes had more utility and added on to the core gameplay. It also doesn't help that this game is extremely easy. I know this game was made for children, but even though I didn't play this one as a kid, I'm pretty sure I could have beaten it. Gameplay can only take you so far here. How's the game's presentation?
If you mess up my history homework, Timmy Turner, I'll kick your butt!
Yeah, the cutscenes themselves aren't that special. The characters just stand around, not really interacting with anything, so they come off as very static. Graphically, this game isn't doing itself any favors, but the voice acting, as compressed as it is, saves the game's presentation. Since they got the original voice actors to reprise their roles, it feels like something that could have came from the golden age of the show. There were many times where I was unironically laughing at how funny or just stupid these jokes can be.
Luckily, I speak ye olde English, forsooth.
It was kind of weird for me to play Breaking the Rules though, since I noticed a lot of things that they would take and put into its sequel.
The Fairly Oddparents Shadow Showdown. Now this was the one I had as a kid. I believe I picked this up at a GameStop or something like that back in 2005, which makes sense since I was like 8 years old at the time.
Yes, I know I'm old.
So going back and playing this for the first time in a long time was kind of weird. I remember beating it, and I have some vague memories on what happens in each level, but that's about it. So let's dive in to see if this game is going to be, at the very least, decent. Shadow Showdown was developed by the same people who made Breaking the Rules, Blitz Games, and was released in September of 2004. Wait, this game only took 10 months to produce? Damn, they were rushing these games out fast. It was released on the PS2 and GameCube, no Xbox release this time. It also got a GBA port that looks a little different from Breaking the Rules. Instead of a platformer that emphasizes shooting, it looks more like a puzzle platformer. And it also got a PC port that looks similar to Breaking the Rules. Back to the console version, the game starts up with a cutscene that, at the very least, has more energy and animation in comparison to Breaking the Rules. Instead of characters just statically standing there, they're actually reacting to what's going on. You have Timmy running around looking like he's about to die, but there's a reason for that.
Timmy is excited to watch the series finale of the Crash Nebula cartoon.
Damn, they were really trying to push that show, huh? I know we're talking about the Fairly Oddparents here, but did you know they tried to produce an actual Crash Nebula cartoon at one point? They even showed the pilot as an episode of the Fairly Oddparents to see how people would react to it. And in short, it's a less interesting version of Danny Phantom. There are way more detailed videos out there talking about this pilot if you want to check them out. I just had to mention that here. Timmy is about to watch the series finale when his TV stops working. And of course he tries to wish for the TV to work again. Well shit, their powers aren't working either. So Wanda uses her emergency wand to see if that could help. Why didn't they use that in the last game? And that turns into an instructional video posted
By the former fairy royalty, King Oberon and Queen Titania.
This kind of reminds me of the Krusty Krab instructional video. Through the power of magic, Timmy and the gang are transported into the sepia tone world, and now it's time for the tutorial. We have some similar things from the previous game, obviously running and jumping,
But now Timmy has a butt bounce that could be used as an attack.
finally, we have an attack that can be used throughout the entire game. We also have a run button that makes Timmy run for a short period of time. You still have a dedicated button to call Cosmo and Wanda whenever you want, but unlike breaking the rules, there's an icon that shows up whenever they have something new to say, which is pretty useful. Looking around the tutorial, we're reintroduced to collecting wish stars, but instead of collecting 5 stars like in the last game, we're collecting 3. And instead of finding a specific platform, Timmy automatically does the wish no matter where he's at. After wishing for a slingshot and taking care of some targets, we're finished with the tutorial and we're back in Timmy's room, where his TV is still messed up and Cosmo and Wanda still don't have their powers. They decide to go up to Fairy World and, well, things don't look right here. Jorgen comes up out of nowhere and tells us what's going on. The Fairy Royal Jewel has been stolen and is in the hands of a jester known as Quince, as revenge for losing his job from the former king and queen? Damn, he really took his job seriously. Anyways, it's now up to Timmy to find the jewel and to get his fairy's powers back, and of course to watch some TV. The first proper level in this game is Fairy World. We were barely in there in the first game, so it's pretty cool they made a full level out of it here. And right off the bat, this game shows off the main difference from breaking the rules. Not only are we using our main attacks, but also with our first wish being this card suit shooting gun, don't question this. With all the wishes being situational in the previous game, here in Showdown, the wishes have more utility in them and are used throughout the level. With the gun here, it could be used to open up new platforms with these cards, or it could be used as a projectile attack. The other wishes you can get is this cow suit. God, I am not going there. Where cows can follow you, and you open up new areas as you guide them into their pens. Their AI is kind of bad, but luckily you don't have to use this wish that often. And there's also this fixing machine thingy that also opens up new platforms. Okay, so all these wishes kind of do the same thing, but in different ways, and it's kind of interesting as you're using all these tools to progress in the stage, making this feel more like a puzzle platformer as you're swapping in between the tools that you're using to progress. And you can do this by hitting the R2 button to change your wishes, or you can use this weapon wheel type thing. The only issue is that you select your wish by using the right analog stick instead of using the left analog stick, so that's kind of weird, but it works. After flying around some cards, dealing with cows and cow farmers, we meet Quince in this very easy boss battle, which isn't shocking. This is a licensed kids game after all. Quince is defeated, but he doesn't have the royal jewel. So the gang moves to Jorgen's base of operations, and say that there's one magical item more powerful than the jewel that could potentially fix everything. A fairyversary muffin. Man, I kind of forgot about this thing. I think it debuted in the Abracatastrophe special. The muffin grants the powers of one rule-free wish, so they move back into Timmy's room, getting the ingredients to make the muffin. I like how he orders all these magical items on his fucking computer, and the way he types is so goddamn stupid, I love it. Thanks to the power of non-unionized Amazon workers, the muffin ingredients come to the house in no time. And of course, Vicky answers the door, taking all of the baking stuff. Even Timmy's mom and dad are there, and take some of the ingredients for themselves. Which makes me wonder, why is the babysitter just chilling there when they don't need her? With all of Timmy's crap either stolen or broken,
I must be
Timmy now has to go through a bunch of levels at Jorgen's base to get all the ingredients to make the muffin. And here's your main hub world for the rest of the game, where we have 2 levels to pick from, but we'll unlock 3 more for later. Meaning, yes, counting Fairy World, this game only has 6 levels. Now, granted, there's a lot more going on in each level in comparison to breaking the rules, so let's go through all the levels and I'll give you all the highlights. The first level I played was the Crimson Chin level. Instead of fighting 3 villains that I barely remember from the show, we're facing off against H2 Olga. This level is broken up into 2 areas. The opening, where you're turning off giant faucets to stop the water from being dumped into the city. What a waste of water. And then the second part is going up this warehouse, freeing the Chin, and facing off against Olga herself. The wishes here are interesting, some more useful than others of course. The propeller wish only works if you're standing still instead of being able to jump with it, which makes it not as useful as it looks. The pogo stick just gives you a higher jump, which this level doesn't use that often, and the freeze gun is a freeze gun, not much to explain there. I should mention that you also have other collectibles aside from the stars. Instead of collecting a bunch of crowns that don't do anything, here this game has coins, and they can be used to buy permanent power-ups to your abilities, which gives you more of a reason to explore each level. The power-ups themselves are useful to an extent, from a permanent health boost, which is nice, to unlocking a mini-map showing off where coins and stars are. Unfortunately, they're kind of small dots on the map, so it doesn't really help that much. And similar to the Crimson Chin cards from the first game, you can also unlock clips from the shows as collectibles, which for the time when this game came out, would have been a decent inclusion. And there's also these stickers that don't really do much outside of looking cool, I guess, so there's not really much of a bonus here. Next level, we had to go through Timmy's dad's dream. He uses the sugar that was going to be used for the muffin to power a robot? I forgot Timmy's dad was kind of a tinkerer, aside from being a pencil pusher. Through the power of TV magic, the TV makes Timmy's dad fall asleep. At least, I think that's what's happening here. And the only way to get the sugar off the robot is to wake him up. After that doesn't work, we go into his dream to wake him up. Kind of a weird setup, even for this show's standards. But I like what's going on here. This feels like it could have been an episode straight from the show. So Timmy's dad's dream is pretty, well, simple looking, come to think of it, with it mostly being about power tools and shit like that, aside from this weird hot dog boat. I'll be honest, out of all the things I remembered from this game, this was the thing I had the most vivid memories about. Oh yeah, this level was kinda whatever, I guess. Nothing really stands out level design or wish-wise. Probably the weakest level we've played through so far. It ends with a giant robot chasing after you, which reminds me of the time when Timmy's dad and Dinkelberg made giant robots out of their cars for no reason. Probably the best part of this level for me. Next level, we go to the former Fairy Royalty's mansion, and it starts out with us talking to this old guy who isn't suspicious at all. It's not like he looks like this guy on the cover of the fucking game. So they're looking for clues to see how the royal jewel was stolen. And this level might just have the coolest wish in the entire game. Timmy is granted the ability to flip the entire mansion upside down so he can walk on the ceiling. And the level is designed with this in mind, with doors that could only be opened from the ceiling, since fairies can just, fly up. And there's a lot of coins where you can collect as well. The ghost one is used for going through certain walls and scaring these knights to open up doors. And the magnifying glass, aside from putting a lens flare on the camera, shows off hidden platforms and the path that you need to follow. The boss battle at the end of the level is pretty simple, but uses the house flipping and magnifying glass wish by having the house flip around while trying to land this box on this suspicious looking monster. Do this enough times and it's revealed that, oh, it's the king and queen. That's not surprising at all, come to think of it. I just noticed that they put fucking boob jiggle physics on the queen's chest. What the heck, guys? Okay, so they don't have the jewel, they just stole it and gave it to someone. But they did that so they could rule over a new place because they don't rule over Fairy World anymore, so they want to rule over Earth now. How predictable. They ditch us, and now we're back at Jorgen's place. And the only thing to do now is to continue to make the muffin. The next level is our space level, and once again we're wearing a Crash Nebula outfit. Thanks to the power of TV magic, and Vicky being, Vicky, she becomes the ruler of Yugopotamia, and wants to rule over Earth, of course. So it's up to Timmy to stop her, and to also grab the milk she has to make the muffin. Okay, so the level itself, well, it has some things to make it unique, having wishes like the jetpack, which is basically a better version of the propeller wish from the Crimson Chin level, and this pinball that kinda reminds me of Super Monkey Ball, just with more stiffer controls. Other than that, this level kinda suffers from being too big, if that makes sense, having these giant, uninteresting levels that go on way longer than I would like. But I really like the pinball sections of the level, and I like how they integrated that into the final boss battle with Vicky. And the last level is full of monkeys.
Monkey!
This level is based off of that one part of the Abracatastrophe special, where the world has been taken over by apes. In this game's case, it's because Timmy's mom was watching a cooking special on how to make banana bread, and thanks to TV magic, the world is now Planet of the Apes. Yeah, just go along with this. First, you need to talk to a giant ape talking about a rebellion. I really wasn't expecting the fucking Fairly Oddparents out of all things to talk about government rebellions, but this is more played off as a joke. The wishes you get here is this lizard suit that makes you climb up vines, a monkey wrench that's literally a monkey trying to open up doors for you, and a banana launcher that's meant to move monkeys from one place to another, opening doors for you. But unfortunately, there's no way of telling where the bananas are going to land. You kind of just have to take a guess on whatever the power meter on the side means for how far the banana will go. This is pretty bad, especially when you're relying on it to move on to the next sections of the level. The boss battle is fighting off this giant ape, which isn't difficult, and then you save Timmy's mom as she scolds you for whatever reason. That's nice of her. And now you have everything to make the muffin. I like how Timmy just throws all the ingredients in the oven without doing any proper measurements or cooking.
Oh my god.
Alright, boss battle time. We see the king and queen once again, alongside a certain chamber hand who we saw in the mansion level. But it turns out he's not the real bad guy of the game. His shadow is. This is the thing that has the royal jewel and wants to take over the universe or something like that. Yeah, it's kinda weird to see the main antagonist of the game show up literally at the last second. But now we have a boss battle, and once again, unsurprisingly, it's super easy. All you need to do is butt bounce on these lights and then hit his feet. That's it. Timmy wishes for everything to go back to normal, all of the fairies get their powers back, and he heads back to his house to watch the Crash Nebula series finale. And that's pretty much it.
As simple and as goofy as the game's plot was, I liked how it turned out. It felt like one of the show's many specials it had, with a giant overarching plot going on throughout the levels. But having the main villain of the game being revealed at the last 5 minutes of it does kind of suck. I mean, this game is called Showdown. I would expect him to be there more. But aside from that, I do like what we have here for a plot, especially in comparison to Breaking the Rules, where every single level kind of felt like it's doing its own thing.
Gameplay-wise, I like what they've done with the wishes in this game, making them way more useful and less situational in comparison to Breaking the Rules, turning this 3D platformer into more of a puzzle platformer, having Timmy solving ways to progress in each level by using the wishes, making you use all of the wishes in combination with each other, giving them more utility. Some of the wishes are pretty useful and are really cool, while others are kind of crap. Having the new abilities is nice as well, with the dash making the game go by much faster, and the butt bounce was a pretty reliable attack. Even though there were less levels here in comparison to the first game, it feels like there was a lot more going on in each of them to make them more interesting. Aside from the wishes, exploration is increased by having you look for the coins if you want to go after all of those upgrades. There's only a couple upgrades I would say are necessary, the minimap upgrades are not one of those. Presentation-wise, yeah, graphically this game doesn't look too different from Breaking the Rules. Reusing assets from a handful of returning locations, and especially the returning character models. One thing I always thought was weird for both of these games is that all of the characters' faces are 2D sprites, when the rest of their model is 3D. So when you move the camera around, you see their face just change position. But aside from that, this game is kind of below average graphically, but it does follow the show's art style, so I'll give it props for that. Once again, the voice acting and the characters' dialogue saves this game's presentation. The cutscenes, as few as they are, also takes a noticeable boost in quality, having a little bit more animation, showing characters actually reacting to what's going on, and just being a little bit more entertaining. Overall, this game is a lot better than Breaking the Rules, with gameplay that seems more focused on being a puzzle platformer, having the wishes be more useful and less situational, having more of a developed, albeit simple story, and having better presentation overall. I just wish this game went on a little longer, and maybe having some more time dedicated to designing the levels I didn't like. At best, this is a solid but very easy 3D puzzle platformer, kind of run-of-the-mill for its time, but if you're interested in something like this, then yeah, check it out. It's certainly better than Breaking the Rules. Well, that was both console Fairly Oddparents games. Nothing too amazing here, but I do think Showdown deserves at least a little bit of love. It was kinda weird to play it after all these years. This brought back a lot of memories when I was a kid, watching these episodes for the first time after a long day of school. But of course, it wasn't perfect. Showdown had some of the problems I mentioned, and Breaking the Rules overall was kind of boring.
If you guys have any memories with these games, or if you want to let me know what games to review next, please leave it in the comments below. I'd love to read them. I know I have a lot more licensed games to pick, especially Nickelodeon ones, so I know I'm not done here. Before I go, I just want to say thank you all for 3,000 subscribers. That is pretty crazy. I was not expecting my channel to get that big, that fast, and especially for how well my last video did. That is my most viewed video, like, ever. I have a couple plans to make more horror videos in the future, so stay tuned for that. And if you enjoyed my videos, please give it a like and subscribe to this channel. I have more videos to come. Thank you all for watching, stay safe, and have a good night.